Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Friday, August the 5th. I'm Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com, your daily host. And every Friday, starting with last Friday and moving forward, I'm going to be joined by that handsome gentleman on the other side of me, Mr. Jesse Schul from British Columbia, Canada, soon to be Thailand. Right, Jesse? You're moving to Thailand again. And you're leaving tonight, as a matter of fact.
Flying out on the red eye, Ross. Flying out on the red eye. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Jesse's been an English teacher down there in Thailand and came back to British Columbia, as I understand, Vancouver specifically, to because of the pandemic, and understandably so. And he's a former handicapper, like many former handicappers at covers.com. I say that because Jesse was one of the top sellers there, one of the top performers, but Covers, for whatever reason, decided they weren't going to sell picks anymore. Anyway, Jesse, we saw the opening of the NFL preseason last night, and nothing shocking occurred. The only thing I could take from that game is the fact that the Raiders have more quality depth. And at this point, with two new coaching staffs, meaning Jacksonville and the Raiders, it seems that the Raiders might be not only more deep, but a little more organized at this point, I would say.
Yeah, that caught me a little off guard. I had a one-star play on the game. I did take the Jaguars based on the fact that their coach has got a better preseason record than his opponent, and I knew they weren't going to play their starting quarterback, their starting running back, but like I say, it was a one-unit play. Get your feet wet. A friend of ours, Tony Mejia, said if you're not playing the Hall of Fame game, it's like a kid that doesn't want to show up for the first day of school. Shooters shoot. And I said, okay,
That's a
well,
good analogy, man.
shooters shoot. I took my shot, but I missed. But that's okay for a one-star play at this point. I've been having a pretty good August and July, so I'll take it.
We're talking to Jesse Schul. He's a fellow handicapper with myself at picksandparleys.net, at sportsmemo.com. What am I missing, Jesse? I think we're on one other site together.
Sports capping, as you
Sportscapping.com.
always mention, that's the best place to verify our
Yeah,
records.
not the best place for me to sell picks, but the best. They definitely do a terrific job at keeping accurate records, and we're able to do the search ourselves at their site. Similar to Sports Memo, does good things as well there. It's just that me and Jesse started way back with sports capping, so we're able to go back many years when it comes to documented records, and we could break it down to NFL totals, college football totals, how we do on money line picks, the whole 9 yards, and they do a good job in that regard. Having said that, Jesse, before we get to our free picks, and folks, we're going to be giving out NFL regular season win totals predictions on the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Boy, oh boy, there's a lot of people out there who are holding their nose, and we're two of them. But in any case, Jesse, how you been doing of late, and what you got coming up possibly that you could talk about with the viewers?
Well, I'm going to be on a plane on Saturday night, but my Eastern Conference game of the year for the CFL is already posted. Of course, it's a matchup between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts, both provincial rivals in the province of Ontario. These are two really, two teams that really hate each other, and it's a close to a pick'em game, so it should be entertaining. You can get that at my website, jesseschul.com, or Sports Memo, Sports Capping, Picks and Parlays. So that's what I'm excited about while I'm on the plane.
Yeah, there you go. JesseSchul.com. I should have mentioned that. I apologize for that, Jesse. You could find me too at my personal website, rbwins.com. Cashed in last night. I swished my shot. I had the over 30 and a half in that game, which finished 27-11. That now, going back to 1999, that was the third lowest total of any NFL preseason game. As a matter of fact, totals of 32 or less has only happened 3 times since 1999, and all 3 of those games went over the total. That's what you resort to during the NFL preseason. Trends, coaching trends in particular, seem to hold serve better, much better than in the regular season, where we have to deal with a lot more obstacles in our daily handicapping when it comes to college football and the NFL. Having said all that, Jesse, you have a free pick for us on the win total of the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, like you said, Ross, we're sort of holding our nose here. And if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you might want to change the channel or turn down the volume or just go get yourself something out of the fridge because I don't have a lot of great things to say about the Bears, to be honest with you. I got their win total at 6.5, under -120 at Bet365. I'm looking at the under. You know, Chicago was 6-11 straight up last year, 6-11 against the spread as well. And I just don't see a lot of improvement to be had there. One of the things that I'm looking at is they were 3-9 with Justin Fields as quarterback, and 3-3 when Nick Foles and Andy Dalton were the quarterbacks. So I mean, their backups appear to be better than their starter. And this year, their backups are Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman. And I mean, Foles and Dalton, they might be past their primes, but they're both winners throughout their career. I mean, Foles is, you know, a Super Bowl champ. Dalton's, you know, perennial Pro Bowler. So at least they have that pedigree of winning. You cannot say that about Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman. They have what you'd have to say is the opposite pedigree. And, you know, Fields is playing behind an offensive line that is ranked second worst in the NFL. Like last week, Ross, you had me do the Seattle Seahawks, which ranked absolutely worst on the offensive line. And this week, just one better, the Chicago Bears. I mean, you know, I like to be a positive person. I don't know what you're doing to me, but, you know.
I'm sticking you with some pretty terrible teams, and it just falls into rotation that way. I apologize, buddy.
Well, I will move on. You know, the Bears offensive line it stinks, and it's not expected to be any better than it was last year. And they've got a young quarterback that didn't impress last year. They didn't have a first round pick in the draft because they gave it up so that they could draft Justin Fields. And I got to myself thinking, what were they thinking when they drafted Justin Fields out of Ohio State? And my thought process was I've seen a lot of guys go into that Ohio State offense loaded with talent and depth at receiver and running back and offensive line. And one name that came to mind was Cardale Jones, who was third on the depth chart. He was their third best quarterback that year. He comes in after a couple injuries, wins the national championship. You know, and that tells me that basically anybody can play for Ohio State. You know, I mean, so are you, when you pick this guy out of Ohio State and say, well, he put up good numbers, he looked good, you got to keep that in mind. And so that was just my thoughts without actually researching it. And when I started researching it, I come across an article from Sporting News saying that Justin Fields is got a chance to end the stigma of Ohio State quarterbacks. And they showed the history. 15 quarterbacks have been drafted out of Ohio State since the 70s, and not one of them has had any real success in the NFL. And so far from what I've seen from Justin Fields and the talent that they've surrounded him with as well, I mean, even if you like Justin Fields, even if you think that he's a far better quarterback than he was last year, what's he going to do behind the second worst offensive line in football? And with a running back like David Montgomery, who, you know, his name doesn't really stand out, his stats don't really stand out. He's running behind that poor offensive line. The receiving core, not exactly a lot of big names there either. It's a real tough ask to see the Bears really improve on last year's record. And one thing I'll mention is you're going to take on the Detroit Lions after I'm finished here. 2 of their wins last year came against Detroit. So if it wasn't for playing Detroit twice, they would have been even worse. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll let you really break down the Lions, but I think the Lions are going to be better this year. I mean, they're supposed to have the second best offensive line, or maybe not this, one of the top offensive lines of football. And Jared Goff, say what you want about Jared Goff. he's not an elite quarterback, but he's been around. He's been doing this for almost a decade. He's won some games. Um, you know, I don't think he's going to go out there and lose games for you. He should be able to keep you competitive. So they play the Lions twice this year. I don't think they're sweeping those games. In fact, I've got their schedule here. Just I've got the whole list. If you don't mind going through it, Ross,
Sure, go ahead.
I could just go through the games, and I'm just going to say
Yep.
loss or win. And if you disagree, please speak up. But
I'll wait till the end and then I'll comment. How's that?
sure. Starting week 1 against San Francisco, it's at home against San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco has some quarterback controversies of their own, but I mean, they're a team that went to the playoffs last year. They're a team that been to a Super Bowl recently. A lot of talent. Debo Samuel. They could really run the ball. You have to say that's a loss. I mean, surely Chicago is going to be the dog there. Then week 2 at Green Bay, clear loss. I mean, based on the line. And then finally, week 3, you got to win against Houston. I mean, home game against Houston. If there's any game that they're going to win, that's going to be it. And even then, when I say win, I'm not penciling that in. I'm not going to be betting on the Bears that week, folks.
Yeah.
But we'll give them that one.
Okay.
Next week at the Giants, I think the NFC East is going to be bigger this year, or better this year. Giants had a lot of injuries last year. They got a new coach, Saquon in a contract. Yeah, I'm going to go loss there. At Minnesota, clear loss. At home versus Washington, I'm going to give it to Washington. I mean, I'm not even a Carson Wentz fan, but I'm a bigger Carson Wentz fan than I am a Justin Fields fan. Next up, we got at New England, loss. At Dallas, loss. At home versus Miami. Not a big Miami guy, but I mean they've made some moves. They're a team on the up and up. I'm gonna call that a loss. At home versus Detroit, which I already mentioned. I think Detroit's going to be better this year. I penciled in the win just because I think the Bears might be a pick'em or a favorite in that game. I won't be betting on the Bears in that game. I still think Detroit's a better football team than the Bears, but we'll give them that W. So that's 2. That's 10 in the first 10 games. I'm giving them 2 W's that I'm hesitant about. But it gets better. At Atlanta, okay, we'll give the Bears that one. At the New York Jets, I don't know how good the Jets are going to be this year. I'm not going to be betting on the Bears at the Jets, but there's a chance they might be able to win that game. At home versus Green Bay, loss. At home versus Philly, gonna say loss. At home versus Buffalo, gonna say loss. On the road at Detroit, definitely gonna give that one to Detroit. And then back home, final week of the season versus Minnesota, loss. So that has me being generous, in my opinion, giving the Bears 4 wins.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with any of your projections there in terms of their wins and losses. And like you said, it sounds like probably 3 to 4 you were real iffy about even giving them a win. So yeah, I don't see the Bears even coming close to surpassing that win total of 6.5. It's they're a franchise right now that lacks an identity. And one Ohio State quarterback that ended up being pretty good, but Ohio State didn't want to play him was Joe Burrow, ironically. So there you go. I agree with your assessment on Ohio State quarterbacks and the talent they surround themselves with. So Justin Fields, give him the benefit of the doubt. He was a rookie last year. In a perfect world, they did not want him. They did not want him to play as soon as he did last year. He got thrown into the fire, and like Jesse said, not a lot of weapons around him that was going to help his cause. And mostly the offensive line is just absolutely horrible. So anyway, yep, Jesse likes the Bears under 6.5 regular season wins. And you know what? I can't disagree with him. I'm going to take a look at the Lions, like Jesse pointed out. And right now, the Lions regular season win total over 6.5 at -115 or under 6.5 at -105. Jesse, when I looked at the roster, I mean, I was impressed with their draft, but let's face it, okay? The impact players you're going to get out of the draft, you may get a couple, but you know, Hutchinson surely looks like a bona fide starter and a guy who's going to be an NFL All Pro at some point. But even then, it's just a educated guess. But the bottom line is the roster doesn't impress me whatsoever. And consider this. This is where I have a contrarian approach. And this is where I trust the odds makers much more than the NFL analysts we see all over the place. This team was 3-13-1 a season ago. They went 0-8-1 on the road. They've won 6 games or fewer in each of the last 4 seasons. And they've been a dog 24 straight times. Okay. So Jesse mentioned that game against Chicago and whether Chicago would be a favorite or not. The Detroit Lions have been a dog 24 straight games. Yet, the regular season win total is 6.5 after going 3-13-1 a season ago. It's just not that easy, folks. It can't be. Okay. And also consider the fact, they were 3-13-1 last year. They lost 4 games by 3 points or fewer. So that could have been a little better if they split those games. They're at 5-11-1. However, again, I think it's a very high regular season win total based on their recent history, meaning over the last 4 years. And here's the thing. With both Chicago and Detroit, and I think it's more applicable to Detroit than it is Chicago. They play a very weak schedule, okay? And rightfully so after the year they had last year. I measure strength of schedule 2 ways. Number one, I'll take Detroit's opponents this upcoming season, and I'll add up the regular season win totals at the sports book of my choice, okay? When that has been done, and I completed that task, it comes out that Detroit is playing the 27th toughest schedule in the NFL, which means there's only 5 teams that play a softer schedule than Detroit will this year. And then if we go by win percentage, meaning all of their 2022, 2023 opponents, and you take a cumulative win percentage of how those opponents did last year, it comes to 467. That's number 28 in the NFL in terms of strength of schedule. So again, there's 4 or 5 teams that are playing a softer schedule than them. And I go back to the fact that you look at the 3-13-1 last year, the dog of 24, being a dog in 24 straight games. Yet the odds makers have them at 6.5. Like I said, I will trust the odds makers to no end. I'm going to think with a contrarian approach. I'm going to think like a bookmaker here, and I'm going to take Detroit over 6.5 regular season wins for the 2022-2023 season. Jesse, your thoughts?
Well, I like to be a positive person, and if we're going to say something positive about Detroit, the most positive thing they got going for them might be the fact that they play the Bears twice.
Yeah.
So I'm a little higher on Detroit than you are. Yeah. I agree with most of what you're saying, but I do think that soft schedule could open up. I expect the Lions to be better than they were last year. And I'll also point out that while you mentioned their draft picks, another guy is that Jeff Okudah from Ohio State that didn't play last year, right? So not only do they bring in a couple guys from this year's draft, but they got him coming back. Yeah. I think if they can stay healthy, I'm not going to be shocked if they win 6-7 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't predict any more than that. Some of the so-called experts out there, you're seeing some of them say, well, they might contend for a wild card spot. Slow down, folks. You know what I mean? If they get to 7 wins, I think the Lions management would be very happy with that at the end of the year, considering where they've been the last 4 years. I do like Dan Campbell. He's a very fiery head coach. I love head coaches like that. And I think this team will be highly motivated. And I like this choice of over 6.5. I also like Jesse's choice a lot better of under 6.5 with the Chicago Bears. So there you have it, folks. Jesse Shule likes Chicago under 6.5. I like the Detroit Lions over 6.5. Jesse, tell the folks where's your preference? I'm assuming would be jesseshule.com. And you said you had a Canadian Football League Eastern Division game of the year up for tomorrow?
For Saturday,
Saturday. Okay.
which is tomorrow.
Which
so,
is
yeah.
tomorrow. Yeah. See, you're living in Thailand already.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Screwed up. You got to get out of Canada, get to Thailand, and your head's going to be all straightened out, and you'll go on another one of your epic tears. That's Jesse Shule from jesseshule.com. He'll be with us every Friday. You can find me at rbwins.com, folks. Like I alluded to earlier, I cashed in on my NFL preseason pick last night as I had the over 30.5 in the game that finished 27-11. Since last year, 11-6 with my NFL preseason picks, including 9-2 with my last 11. And going back to 2011, 68-50 with my NFL preseason picks. That's good for 58%. And as Jesse, I'm sure will agree with me, anybody who tells you you can't make money during the NFL preseason is crazy. They're just not dealing with the right people. And you got two guys right here that are going to put you in the winner's circle, which, by the way, is the name of our podcast. Anyway, Jesse, thank you for coming on. Look, have a safe trip to Thailand. For Jesse Shule and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.